Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Omnipod. Take Omnipod Dash out for a spin with a no-commitment, free 30-day trial. By Inhaled Insulin, glucose management in the moment, and by Dexcom. Make knowledge your superpower with the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitoring system.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, it is that time of year diabetes camps are in full swing. As remote monitoring technology changes, many camps are adapting as well. There's a new system that lets camp staff monitor everybody's CGM all at once.
Guess what? You can do all of that right now on one screen. What that means is that we now have the ability for people to be super admins, counselors, medical staff, all different levels, but seeing everything in the whole camp at the palm of their hand.
That's Sarah Gleich, Executive Director of the Nevada, California Diabetes Association. We'll find out more about what's called CampViews, where it's already in place, how it's going, and whether it'll change diabetes camp for good. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Stacey Sims, and you know we aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. And I want to say a quick welcome to new listeners from Friends for Life. If I met you there, I'm thrilled to have you as a listener. I hope you got some rest and had a safe trip home. My goodness, what a week. I'll be sharing more stories and hopefully more interviews soon about the things we learned there and the new people we met and the technology that you wanted to hear more about. So stay tuned. Longtime listeners will know that I'm a huge fan of camp, diabetes camp, regular camp, all the camps. And my son went to diabetes camp from age 7. It's really been remarkable to watch how the technology at camp has changed the policies. Just a couple of years ago, if you had any kind of DIY technology, you had to take it off at camp, at most camps. That was a real issue in the community, liability and things like that. But people who are using these systems safely wanted to send their kids to camp with it. So camps struggled with that for a while. Seems to have resolved mostly, not at every camp, as we talk about that in the interview. But as the technology evolves, so does the way that the camp staff, most of whom live with type 1, want to be able to use it. And I do remember years ago, our local diabetes camp medical director was talking about somehow hooking up a system where somebody could sit in the health center and watch all the kids' Dexcom numbers. Well, Dr. Miaschek, it looks like somebody figured it out. So that's what we're talking about today. And I have heard about this via the DIY community, but this is the first time I've heard of a camp system in the United States using something to this extent. So what are we talking about here? It is called CampViews. It's an application. It was developed to be an online registration system, all that information that you got to take in before camp. It's increasing efficiency. I'm reading a lot of this from their website, and I'll link that up if you want to learn more. The part that we're really going to focus on today, though, is the part that allows the staff to view CGM information, Dexcom right now, anywhere at the camp. And if you go to this link, you can see people, they're holding iPads and they're walking around camp, they're looking at it on their phones. It's really interesting. I will let my guest explain more about how it works and who can get it. My guest is the executive director of the Nevada, California Diabetes Association. They've developed this program. Sarah Gleich lives with type 1. She went to diabetes camp and she has seen the technology change over the years, just like we all have. Going into this interview, I don't think I need to explain a lot other than you should know that API is just referring to some sort of intermediary program so that two software programs can talk to each other. It comes up a lot when we talk about these kinds of things. I never remember what it is. So if you're like me and not the best at computer stuff, that's what an API is. All right, Sarah Gleich in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Omnipod. And you know that I am a big fan of choice when it comes to diabetes technology. I get excited when there's something new because if you live with diabetes, whatever type, whatever age, you deserve to find the best fit for you. That's just one reason I'm working with Omnipod to help spread the word about their program that makes it so easy to test their system out. It is the Omnipod Dash free trial. If you want to try an insulin pump or see what life without tubes is all about, you can now try Omnipod Dash free for 30 days. The trial comes with no commitment or obligation. Not right for you? No problem. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Omnipod logo. Terms and conditions apply. For full safety, risk information, and free trial terms and conditions, also visit omnipod.com/diabetesconnections. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
What is CampViews? Tell me about this program.
Yeah, so CampViews is an electronic medical recorder specifically designed for diabetes camps. And what we have done is taking the pre-camp, during camp, and post-camp experience and put it onto one platform. It's a communication skill that takes the log sheets for providers and counselors, but also we now have real-time API access with Dexcom. So we can do a lot of great things over at the camp programs. And my goal is to take a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. And so our campers can have the same systems and the same type of care that they might have at their house.
One of the big challenges for parents, especially parents who've had a Dexcom on their child since the day of diagnosis or shortly thereafter, is sending their child to diabetes camp and not seeing those numbers. Tell me a little bit more about how you envision this. I assume that at least to start, it would just be the camp staff that sees the numbers.
Yeah, so that was the biggest part. We were at a conference over a decade ago, and the camps were just saying, well, all these new technologies that are coming out, we are just going to take them off of these campers. And I said, excuse me? And I said, so what you mean to tell me is that you would take my technology off of me? And they go, well, it's not the part of the camp experience. And I go, no, the camp experience needs to change then. We also did, if you guys can remember way back when, we've had these conversations when insulin pumps came in too. They're like, well, we don't understand them. We're just not going to let the kids do that. Can you imagine somebody taking an insulin pump off of somebody?
I actually didn't know that happened at camp.
Yes, way back. And like I said, I've been in this industry for a really long time. So it is Moore's law. Everything is constantly changing. So what I propose to camps is we need to find a system and we need to find a way to do this. So anything that is provided to our children now, we need to be able to function. And diabetes camps are supposed to be the creme de la creme, where you learn everything, that we have the highest standards, the best staff, the most engaged diabetes care. We need to change the industry. Another reason why CampViews was made.
All right, boy. I have expectations of current camp staff listening to this and saying, that sounds great, but we barely have the funding to get camp underway every year. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So let's put a pin in that and tell me a little bit more about how the system would work. I remember years ago, one of our local endocrinologists said his dream was to have a staffer, and it would change every few hours, who could just sit and watch a multitude of screens.
Guess what? You can do all of that right now on one screen. So CampViews is now able to be web-based, but also app-based. So on Android and on Mac iOS systems on the Apple platform. So what that means is that we now have the ability for people to be super admins, counselors, medical staff, all different levels, but seeing everything in the whole camp at the palm of their hand. So say you were a camp director and you get access to everything. You see everything for the kids, but maybe you're part of the medical staff. And you get to see all those medical charting on it. But say you're a counselor, we now have a platform for you too, where you just need to input a blood sugar, and say that little Tommy scraped his knee. So that's today. And over at the Nevada and California Diabetes Association, it's been something that we've been troubleshooting, like I said, for over a decade, because we wanted to make sure that this platform was safe so other camps could be using it as well. So we've done a lot of work on ours. We've had a lot of protocols in place to kind of sit there and test. And now we're ready to say that reality of sitting there looking at screens is today.
To be clear, though, what I'm envisioning is the medical director of the camp is in her office, and beep, 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 Tommy in cabin 2 is low. Is that what happens? Or is it she's treating a low and then she puts it in the system?
It could be both, honestly. It could be not even having to sit in the medical cabin. It could be at the pool with the kids as well and just say, hey, before we had all the kids, every hour get out of the pool and test their blood sugar. Now we don't necessarily have to do that. We don't necessarily have to test 6 or 10 times a day for our kids. We can see if those CGM readings are correct. We can look at our palm of the hands and just let the kids continue what they're doing. So you could be in that medical office or you could be right there seeing what's happening.
But to be clear, it's like having, and this is probably a really terrible way to describe it, but in my head, I'm thinking, as a mom, I follow my son. I got one person on my phone. So now I'm a counselor. I have 20 kids on my phone and I can see their blood sugars at any time.
Yeah.
Why hasn't this been done sooner? Is it a technology thing? Is it a camp thing?
You know what? I think it was a little bit of both. What's great about diabetes camps, especially within the diabetes industry, is that everybody likes camps. Everybody supports us, but it was hard to get, tech to say, let's take the jump. But I did present this to Dexcom a while ago, and they're like, yes. And that's why I love their crew so much. It was never a no. It was, how can we do it? It was basically the I have a dream approach. This is what we need to do. This is what camps need. And camp programs are the only programs, you don't even see this in hospitals. We have so much data running and so many lives at the palm of our hands right there. So I said, can we make a platform that can support that? And that was something that they didn't see before. We're working with regulations, making sure that we were secure, making sure we had a system in place that, was secure. It took a while for everybody to get on board. And there was a cost. It was a little by little, capital grant here, capital grant there to put and piece this together.
So the funding came mostly from grants. Did Dexcom pay for it as well, or camps? Or
you know what? They gave us all of the research and development they possibly could. We've run a bunch of studies, so that helps support the system and building it. So really working hand on hand, but the Nevada and California Diabetes Association is completely funded by private donations.
Has it been put in place in a camp? Have kids and campers been followed?
Yeah, we're following over 25 camps as we speak right now. It is June and 'tis the season for diabetes camps.
But is this the first year? I mean, I know you sound like you were testing it. Tell me a little bit about the history.
So like I said, for the last 12 years, we've used it at the Nevada and California Diabetes Association. But for it's about 4 years now, we've been leasing it out. Like I said, 25 camps are running right now, but we've even done a lot of other cool things. Like I said, diabetes camps has the power to give you a lot of data. When the kids, like myself, want to share the industry, how we can move it forward. So we've done a lot of studies, and we also ran a camp in Poland last year that we're really good friends with, and hopefully be going back there soon.
But wait a minute, you said 12 years you've been doing this?
Yeah, well, I had to make sure it was secure, right? So we've been working nonstop, a little bit here, a little bit there.
But tell me about that, because 12 years ago, I mean, I remember my son has been on a Dexcom since 2013, and at the time, something like 60,000 people I don't know if that's worldwide or in America were on it. So I don't mean to cast doubt. I mean, that's not why I'm asking it this way, but it doesn't seem like a time when a lot of kids were using CGM. What did it look like 12 years ago?
No, so 12 years ago, people weren't on any control systems. CGMs weren't a thing. If you look at diabetes camps now, all across the board in the United States, I should say that you have over probably 85% of kids that are on CGM technology now. Yeah. That was not the case. It was probably 10%, at that time. Now we have more insurances covering it, things like that. They see the long term.
Yeah, so I guess what you mean when you mean 12 years ago, this was like the idea, you were testing how it would work, that kind of stuff.
Wouldn't it be great if we could see all their blood sugars and what's happening on one platform? And, say we had a medical professional that had to maybe run back to the hospital really quick, come back later, wouldn't it be cool if they could see their log so they can stay focused on everything that's happening, and they could talk to the counselor or the other staff that's there. That's what we were dreaming, and that's what's becoming a reality.
I may get some pushback for this question from you or from listeners, but I wonder, CGM makes things amazing. I don't want to ever give it back. I think it's an incredible, incredible tool. But I also wonder that it changes expectation of camp, right? If people can see time and range, they want more time and range. They want only time and range. Have you found that that's been a difficulty as you implemented this, that parents are actually disappointed or more worried? Right back to Sarah answering that. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Afrezza. Afrezza is an ultra-rapid-acting mealtime insulin. You breathe it in using an oral inhaler. Once inhaled, Afrezza passes quickly through your lungs and enters your bloodstream in less than 1 minute and may start reducing blood sugars within about 12 minutes. Find out more, see if Afrezza is right for you. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Afrezza logo. Afrezza can cause serious side effects, including sudden lung problems and low potassium, and is not for patients with chronic lung disease such as asthma or COPD, or for patients allergic to insulin. Tell your doctor if you ever smoked, have ever had kidney or liver problems, a history of lung cancer, or if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. Most common side effects are low blood sugar, cough, and sore throat. Severe low blood sugar can be fatal. Do not replace long-acting insulin with Afrezza. Afrezza is not for use to treat diabetic ketoacidosis. Please see full prescribing information, including boxed warning, medication guide, and instructions for use on Afrezza.com/safety. Now back to Sarah, addressing my concerns about how this technology may change the camp experience.
We are in a new generation. of parents in diabetes camps. You know, the demand is there. And that was another thing that I brought to camps. And I was like, you're expected to keep these kids, 70 plus time in range. And one of the things that CampViews has shown through the studies is that we can keep the kids' time in range significantly higher, almost by 26%, but also that we're changing the standards of when we are going to go in and do something about a blood sugar. Before, you were looking, and I'm talking a couple decades ago, that we wouldn't intervene unless a blood sugar was under 150, and that's a very high number, up to 400. So, outside of those ranges, we would do something and go, well, for my child, if I was sending them to camp, that wouldn't be okay with me. Now we want to make those standards maybe between 80 and 250. And that's the biggest thing. When you go to these diabetes camps, maybe you're there with a counselor or a medical professional that isn't as familiar with your child. They're completely capable. They will understand your child, but they're not the parent. So they're not as aggressive on blood sugar control. And they'll say, you know what, maybe we let little Johnny go to bed, at 260 and see if they come back down. Now, CampViews is another set of eyes when you can take a more aggressive approach and just say, okay, they're 251 right now. Maybe let's give them a little bit so they can have a safer night.
I put a pin in this, but let's go back to cost.
Yeah.
What is the cost? How would this work? How could you roll it out to camps that are perpetually underfunded?
Absolutely. Yeah. My goal wasn't to say, oh, we are going to make so much money off of this. And honestly, every dollar we make, we put back into the system. We just pay for the camps ourselves. But I want it to be accessible for everybody. So we have different leasing systems. We have people, within our private entities that want to push and make camps a better place. If you look at any of the other camp systems that are out there right now that don't do any CGM technology or log sheets or things like that, they're extremely expensive just for registration systems. We get people on board for just a couple $100s just to see if we can get their camps going. And then, for smaller camps, we have a different pricing scale than we do for the larger camps too, because it needs to be doable. The industry has to change, and this is the one step forward that we need to do. So accessibility for everybody is our main goal.
Tell me a little bit about you, because we've mentioned you were a camper, you have lived with diabetes since you were very young. When did you go to camp?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed at the age of 5, and I lived in New Jersey at the time, and I went to a great program called Camp Ninjetta. My family, moved out to Las Vegas because the desert needed water, and our family was in engineering at that time. So we moved out here. We went to another camp at about the age of 13. So that's how I got connected with the Nevada and California Diabetes Association. Went there for a lot of years, went to college. And after I graduated, they offered me a job. They're like, would you like to be camp director? And I was like, guys, love camp, been going for a while. I go, but I'm just not a campy camp director. So I took that job. It was the best thing ever. I worked my way up through, up to executive director on that one. But counselor, camper, really seeing the ins and outs and the details of camp management. That's how this whole thing started. It's like, we need to do something. We have to change the industry and we have to move it forward because it's so important for training and learning, not just for our campers, the families, but the medical staff that gets to see diabetes management in a different way. So after that, I'm now a mom, I am a wife, I've working here for a while, and I've had this disease for quite some time, but that is my story in a nutshell.
Did you love diabetes camp when you were a kid?
It was funny. I think it went in ebbs and flows. We all talk about the strong hand on getting your child there, and like I said, I'm not that campy. However, there's something about this program, these types of things, is the sense of community. And to just keep going back, and you want to learn, and then you want to teach others, and then you want to be in these spaces with people that have shared experience, and it keeps going. And there's something, I would never give it up at all.
Wait,
so,
but I feel like I'm reading between the lines that you didn't start out excited about going to diabetes camp.
No, I didn't. I remember sitting there in Pizza Hut in New Jersey. My mom was like, you're going to go to diabetes camp, and here's another person that goes there, and we're going to talk about it. And I was like, great.
Oh.
So that's kind of how the experience started. But there's something about it that really just makes you passionate about it. And so some parents are like, well, I don't necessarily want to send my child. I don't think I'm ready. There might be a point where you do get ready. I would say try it once, see how it is. Because when you look at a diabetes camp, you can't be like, yes, we all have diabetes and things like that, but we're so different. And you're like, wow, this disease affects everybody. That's what I think brings us together. I have friends from camp that you wouldn't imagine putting me in the same room with, but you know what? We are family. And if they ever needed me, I'd be there.
You said something interesting, though, and I don't know if you meant to say that. You said, parents who aren't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if parents are ever ready.
Yeah.
How do you talk to a parent, and I'm sure you've done this before, who their kid is going to benefit, but the parent isn't ready?
Yeah, so camp is as much for the camper and child itself as it is just to have a little bit of a reprieve for the parent. The one thing when your child gets diagnosed that I hear all the time is, well, why did this happen and how do I fix it? Right? And that's stressful. You think maybe you did something to do this to your child. So the mental strain that just has it, on you is something that sometimes you just need a break. Take a moment, try to sleep. And like I said, diabetes camps, they have those extra set of eyes. And if something was to happen to my child, I would want it to happen at a camp. So take the time, a little encouragement. And it is a big leap. This is a life-threatening condition, but there's no place that I would recommend more for your child with diabetes than a diabetes camp.
Something just occurred to me as we were talking. I meant to ask you earlier, with your software program at the camp, what about campers who either don't wear CGM or wear a different brand of CGM?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're trying to work on. What's great about CGM use right now is that it's called an API system. So it's a system where we can see that cloud-based data on that. But if your child comes here and it's just not one that we're linked up with yet, we are going to try. That is the future of all the technologies. And like I said, what's great about diabetes camps is hopefully all tech will want to work together in this atmosphere. But you know what? We use our technology. At my camps in particular, it really doesn't matter what you bring, as long as your child's safe. So if they have a different system, we will learn it. Now, with that being said, if we do feel the system fails, we will take them and put them on MDI or shots or things like that. And I'm talking more of those like do-it-yourself at home type of systems. But you can bring whatever you want to camp and we're able to use it. And you should have the same experience, as everybody else.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned the DIY stuff because I remember several years ago, this was a huge bone of contention. We're talking 2014, maybe 15, 16, where camps were saying, this is not FDA approved. You cannot bring this technology in. And, of course, parents were upset because the backup plan was MDI. Is that largely settled now?
No,
I don't even know.
It's a huge debate with legality, right? So say you have something that you've put together, and if it fails, who's responsible for that? The camper, the family, the licensed medical professional, that's a lot on it. So we do have a protocol in place that says you can use your DIY technology. However, if we do feel that you're not in the control that is desired, we are allowed to take it off just for the safety of the child. But I think it is a 50-50 split on camps taking that risk.
You think there's 50% of campers who are DIY now?
No, I think it's 50% of the camps that say, yes, it's okay. 50% that say no.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just come such a long way. And the conversations get easier, I think, as you just have them.
Yeah. And now a lot of the companies are, using these systems that talk to each other. So
sure.
It might just be a thing of the past, as well. Just like I think probably taking our blood sugar readings off your finger, finger sticks is probably going to become a thing of the past as well.
It really is amazing to think about it.
It's amazing. I love it so much.
Absent the Dexcom stuff, what can parents of campers do to give everybody a better experience? Because I got to be honest with you, I think it's all well-meaning, right? Everybody's just nervous or worried. So, what can we do either, you think, in advance or while our children at camp to really help the camper, him or herself, and the staff?
Yes. So having those pre-camp conversations about your worries and fears, I think is the best thing. So you can actively be ready when camp starts. Read the handbook. It's like the number one thing I could say as a camp director. So many things that have been asked before, we've thought about them and we have put them in this concise form, just with the frequently asked questions. And, talk to your camper, like pack with them, right? Let them know what you're putting in there as much as you know. So they're ready to go. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest reward that you'll get after a program and everything is that your child will not stop talking for the first hour, about everything that he did. It's so exciting. It's great. And then they'll fall right asleep. So if that is how it ended, you're just like, okay, we can do this, do this again, but prepare yourself, have the conversations, talk to other parents that have been there. There's so many, different groups that are out there that sit there and just chat online, sit there and, say, hey, would you like to go get a coffee? And they could put your mind at ease for those little tidbits. But just do the pre-camp information. I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable.
One of the topics that I see in groups, a lot of parents are concerned about the food at diabetes camp, right? Every family, regardless of diabetes, eats a certain way. How do you guys manage all those different styles of eating? I know there's allergies as well. Is that one of the more difficult issues at camp?
It's very funny. A lot of the camps own their own properties and a lot of them don't. In particular, over in Nevada and California, for our organization, we're renters. So we go into these campsites and we are, I know, the most extreme and diverse that you would ever see a menu or dietary need. What's great about our program and what a lot of the camps do is that they bring in universities to help out. So I have a full internship program of just, resident dietitians in training, preceptors, medical staff, they are on it. They are eyes looking at labels, getting things done. We could have probably in one camp, 20 different dietary needs, but we're ready. We're ready for it. So we could have a nut allergy, shellfish allergy, celiac, intolerance to this, no soy, no meat, is vegan, it really doesn't scare us because that's what we're trained to do. And like I said, diabetes camps are the place to have it. Now, with that being said, I have traveled around to probably 20 plus diabetes camps. Some of the food is much better at some of them than it is others. So if you do have a concern, many of the camps allow you to bring in food. If you do have restrictions. I've even seen just recently last week when I was in a camp that a family brought their own microwave just to heat something up.
Wow.
So these are extreme circumstances, but like I said, these camps, when you're looking, well, oh, my child has this, this, and this, we're not scared.
Yeah, and I shouldn't laugh because I don't know that family situation. My mind immediately goes to the child will only eat Hot Pockets, exactly. But it's probably a dietary need, and I apologize.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things. My child only eats chicken nuggets is usually the biggest one out there. So camp will be like, well, we're going to serve them what we're having. But in the back of our head, we know that your child, we want them to eat. So we're going to have chicken nuggets probably offhand on there. But this is also the time that maybe we can encourage them to have even, different nutrition. Like I said, we have the people that are there. We have the people that are qualified to maybe help educate and push them in another direction. So your child will not starve. And we will make sure that hopefully maybe they try something new.
Has anything surprised you after following the CGM numbers of these campers for a couple of years?
I am just so happy with a lot of the campers wanting to take control at such a younger age. And you can see it. Say you have little Billy that comes in and little Billy was 14. And we know that being 14 is a very hard time when you have diabetes. Out of control, things looking like an EKG on a dip. But then there's something that sparks, and they're like, I want to do this. You can just see that. And them very trying, wanting to pre-bolus, do all the little things. And you look at their times and range and you go, you know what? And I think it's because they can see the data. They know how they feel. And so it's really nice to see just campers and kids taking control and wanting to do better. Like I said, I was diagnosed in the 80s, and maybe it was a blessing in disguise that I didn't have CGM data. But at the same time, I was like, oh, kind of very extreme, very rock star style. Kids that age we didn't have the tools to sit there and say, okay, I can do better.
Longtime listeners will know how I feel about over-monitoring CGM and really just only focusing on numbers. And I got to share with you, and you can probably put my mind at ease, but I get a little concerned because for my son, diabetes camp was never about worrying about time and range. It was, you're going to be safe, not worried about that. Learn about the diabetes community, find friends, find a place to change your site to. You're going to take it off your stomach and put it on your arm, or you're going to have a chain of kids on your texts to communicate with when you're 14 years old. Are you at all concerned that there's going to be a trade-off for, more time and range, but less the loose community fun stuff and connection that happens at camp?
That's what camps are fighting right now. Diabetes camps in particular. They're like, well, all we're doing is monitoring their data and doing this. And I go, well, we need to create a system where we can have people standing by and let the kids essentially play, and be social and do all these things. And that was another reason why we put CampViews into play, because we were like, well, we're constantly going to be watching them. We go, yes, maybe one person is constantly watching them and saying, hey, you throw a peanut butter sandwich at them, really quick and eat this. Or, hey, do you want to just come over here? It's actually made people be able to engage more. And that's where I think camps need to realize, we can sit back a little bit and just allow them to have the time to make these social connections and bonds and not constantly worry about it. I do have kids that they'll be like, well, I need to see this. I need to see my blood sugar. And I go, I promise you, we have our eyes on it. And they go, that was the biggest relief, because even myself, I look at it, I feel like 1,000 times a day to see where I'm at. It's an addiction. Just saying, we'll be able to take those proactive approaches, but allow them to just socialize, has become beneficial. And like I said, another great thing that we can use CampViews for.
Just to be clear, the system itself is proprietary, right? This is something that, as you said, a big discount, but you are selling it. It is something that camps can buy as a registration process.
Correct.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah, they can lease it out. Correct.
What's the company?
The company is CampViews, but it's under the Nevada Diabetes Association.
Is the Nevada Diabetes Association part of ADA? Is it independent?
No, we are not part of ADA. We actually, about 25 years ago, the ADA decided that they weren't going to run camps in Nevada anymore. So that's how one of the original camps was formed, as they left. However, I just went to Philadelphia this last week, about a couple days ago, and now we're using this at the ADA. So we are trying it out on 4 of their camps right now. One of my coworkers is over in Iowa at another ADA camp. So hopefully to get everybody on board and train them to get a new system and process so people don't doubt, diabetes camps.
You said you were kind of a reluctant camper that first year. What was your favorite part of diabetes camp as a camper?
Gosh, just all the firsts, right? So my first shot, my first time I got to see an insulin pump that looked like a backpack, the first time I saw a CGM, fast-acting insulins, not being on pork and beef, everything, all those first diabetes-wise, I saw at camp. Those are the great things, because I went home and I talked about it. I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, Dad, guess what? I saw this, this, and this, and this is what I want. And I would go into my next medical appointment with my endocrinology team and be so ready to be invested in the next stage. It just made me happy to have this disease. And the one thing I can say is that a lot of people go, I can't believe I have diabetes. If I had to do it all over again and had to redo life, I wouldn't take diabetes away from me. It's given me so much opportunity. And the reason why I think I actually look at my health a little more, just from a younger age. I was like, okay, a diabetes lifestyle is just a healthy one. We all should be living like a person with diabetes. And I think you learn that younger when you have this disease, and camp just really helped reinforce that we were doing right things from a young age.
I love your answer. I'm laughing just because I'm thinking of Benny. I'm thinking of my son. And well, as I've mentioned many, many times, he is far from perfect. And that's okay, right?
Yeah, we're all allowed to do that now. But it's just, I have a 14-year-old too. And I'm like, buddy, you can have whatever you want. Just let's do it in proportion. We can try it again later. It's not a big deal.
Does he have diabetes?
He doesn't. However, he has been going to diabetes camp since he was very little because,
I bet.
Well, guess what? Grandma and Grandpa and everybody else were on the med team, and, people had to work. So he learned how to crawl and walk, and he can take his blood sugar. And just, I'll let you go soon. But one of my favorite diabetes stories was my son, the first year he went to camp, and he was 6. He was a lot younger, and it was at a long resident program. And day 2, we're in there, and I'm walking down one of the paths. I'm talking to some of the other people there, and I see my son just in tears, losing it. And I was like, Jack, what's going on, honey? What? He's like, and he's crying. He goes, Mom. And I go, what? And he goes, I am having a bad time. And I go, why, honey? He goes, we are at diabetes education, and I'm the only one that didn't have a diagnosis story. We're just saying about everything that happened when they got diagnosed. And I go, sweetheart, it's okay. You can give them my diagnosis story, and all that. He goes, no, I want to have diabetes. I'm going to do everything. He marched himself into the med cabin, asked for a CGM. We put a faux pump with saline on it. And I have this picture, and it sits on my desk in my office, that he is so proud to have all his stuff on, And I thought to myself, we have created a place where people that don't have diabetes feel like the outsider. Yeah. I was like, we've done it. So
that's awesome.
That was just, one of those now he's 14, different story, but yes, he doesn't have diabetes, but he plays one on TV and he really is into diabetes management and endocrinology. And that might be a path for him in the future.
What's your dream for the software for this company?
I do have a dream. I hope that CampViews, diabetes views, whatever we merge it out to be, is a way for every single diabetes tech company to come together and play well in the sandbox. And so, like I said, diabetes camps are the place where you have the most concentrated section of people with diabetes, that we have the safest environments possible, where med teams feel like they have an extra set of eyes and that everybody works together. And I think, just looking at a diabetes camp, that's going to push, it already has pushed the industry forward. We've gotten fast-acting insulins, pumps, CGM technology advances all came from camps. And I really think that we can progress this disease so much by using these programs and a system that talks to everybody. So my dream is to have everybody come to the same table and do the best we can for diabetes.
This is so interesting, and I'm thrilled to talk to you about it. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to learning more as it progresses in the future. Keep us posted about more camps, and if you expand it out of camps too, that'd be great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
More information, links to CampViews, and how to get it if you are a diabetes camp that is interested in checking it out. All of that at diabetes-connections.com. Every episode has its own homepage. Show notes are usually on whatever podcast app you're listening to, but if you can't see them, some of them are not that friendly to links and things like that. You can always head over to the homepage and check it out there. Up next, I'm going to need your help for an upcoming show. So stick around and I will tell you what we need. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Dexcom. I'm not monitoring Benny right now. He's at camp. He's doing fine. He's got his own stuff. He's at regular camp. He's using his Dexcom and he's sharing with other people. He's not sharing with me right now. And it's amazing to think about how we used to do it. And he did it this way at camp. He would check doing a finger stick the same times all day long. We had a big routine. It's really amazing to think about how much our diabetes management has changed with Share and Follow. When he's home, I don't have to stop what I'm doing to go check on him. I know what's going on. We can decide if we're going to text him. We're going to actually physically go to him. He's upstairs, his bedroom. My bedroom is downstairs, so I'm going to go help him out. At camp, he can decide he's going to share with a counselor or a friend. And using the apps have really helped us talk less about diabetes, which I never thought would happen with a teenager. He loves that part too. And that's what's so great about the Dexcom system. I think for caregivers, for the spouse or the friend, you can help the person with diabetes manage in the way that works for your individual situation. Internet connectivity is required to access Dexcom Follow. Separate Follow app required. Learn more at dexcom.com/compatibility. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. So much going on right now. I do not want to inundate you with too many things to keep in mind, but I do want to let you know, if somehow you missed it on social media, pre-sales of Still the World's Worst Diabetes Mom have started. The book will be available this fall. It will never be available at this low of a price. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD at diabetes-connections.com to save $5 off the cover price. And by the way, that promo code also works on the first book. Only on our page. I can't do this on Amazon. And the second book won't be available on Amazon till the fall. I also put out a save the date for my Diabetes Connections Presents a Mom's Night Out. This is a mini conference happening in Charlotte, North Carolina in January. It's for moms of kids with diabetes. It's going to be a fun social conference. We are going to have a speaker, but the conference is mostly going to center on technology with lots of vendors there and on meeting moms and learning from each other, that peer-to-peer support and advice that is so important. So that's on the website as well under the events tab. And if you are a technology company and I haven't talked to you yet, you are going to want to get on board. Definitely reach out, Stacey at diabetes-connections.com if you have any questions about that. And I want to let you know that we are taping episode 500 later this month. We're going to tape this live on Facebook. Christina Franks, who is a fabulous news anchor up in Maine, she is actually going to host the episode and she's going to interview me. We are going to talk about diabetes stuff, but I'd love to answer whatever you want. Treat this like an AMA and ask me anything. So send me your questions. You can post them in the Facebook group. You can send them to me via email. Whatever's easy, ping me on social media. And I'm happy to talk about the show, my kids, my family, my golf game, whatever you want to know. Happy to do that. And I'm excited to, tape episode 500. Wow. All right, thank you as always to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in a couple of days with In the News. Until then, I'm Stacey Sims. Be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.